I've decided to start a new life without you." Those words sliced through the elegant hum of the restaurant like shattered glass. The sound of clinking forks and laughter fell silent, replaced by stunned gasps and the faint hum of the jazz trio in the corner, abruptly unsure whether to keep playing. My husband, ex-husband, technically as of 10 minutes ago, stood tall, champagne flute still raised mid-toast, the sparkle in his eyes not for me, but for his newfound freedom. That was how, on the night we were meant to celebrate my daughter's college graduation, my husband of 27 years chose to announce his exit from our marriage. I didn't cry. I didn't even blink. Instead, I smiled and said, "Well, congratulations on finally saying it out loud. Noah, my name is Elena Parker, 53 years old, wife, mother, and a call until a few minutes ago, a woman everyone thought had the perfect life. For nearly 3 decades, I'd played my part flawlessly. I supported Noah through his endless career reinventions, from architecture to startup dreams, from life coach to creative consultant, whatever that meant. I raised our daughter, Sophie, who sat beside me, frozen mid-smile, her graduation cap still pinned to her hair. Her joy had been stolen before dessert even arrived. From the far end of the room, I spotted Lila Hart, Noah's assistant, or rather, the woman he'd been secretly seeing for almost a year. She sat surrounded by our friends, pretending to look anywhere but at me. My stomach turned, not from heartbreak, but from the betrayal of realizing how many of those faces knew the truth long before I did. But tonight wasn't about tears or chaos. I'd prepared for this moment, more than he could possibly know. I reached calmly into my purse and pulled out a silver envelope, sliding it across the table toward him. He frowned. "What's this?" "Something to help you start your new life," I said. My voice didn't tremble. It was almost freeing. Sophie stared at me, panic in her eyes. I leaned over, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "You made me proud today, sweetheart. Don't let this ruin it." Then I stood, straightened my dress, and faced the room full of people holding their breath. "Please enjoy your evening," I said. "The food's lovely. Have some champagne. You'll need it." I walked out, head high, heels steady, feeling 50 pairs of eyes burning into my back. The heavy glass door closed behind me, sealing their whispers inside. Outside, the warm Charleston air wrapped around me like a curtain of reality. I took a deep breath, the first honest one in years. Then I heard Noah behind me, voice trembling now, no longer grand or confident. "Elena, what the hell did you just hand me?" I didn't turn around. I kept walking toward my car. Inside that envelope was the beginning of his downfall, the legal and financial reckoning I had prepared in quiet detail for months. I had been the steady one all along. While he chased dreams, I managed our accounts, paid our mortgage, and built the stability he took for granted. But 3 months ago, small irregularities appeared in our finances, transfers to accounts I didn't recognize. I could have confronted him then. Instead, I waited. I watched, and what I found would change everything. As I pulled out of the restaurant parking lot, I saw his reflection in the rearview mirror, still standing outside, phone in hand, confusion and fear etched across his face. He didn't know it yet, but I had just flipped the script. The man who thought he was leaving me was about to discover that I had already left him, emotionally, legally and financially, and this was just the beginning. By the time Noah realized what I had uncovered, the secret accounts, the affair, the lies, it would already be too late for him to undo what I'd set in motion. I didn't drive home right away. Instead, I parked near the Ravenel Bridge, the skyline of Charleston glimmering across the water. The envelope I'd left with Noah wasn't just paper. It was a carefully loaded weapon. One I'd spent months preparing while he played house with his assistant. Inside it were copies of divorce papers, evidence of financial misconduct, and the clause that would ruin him, the one from our prenup that he'd once laughed off as just formality. He'd signed it willingly, back when I still had more money than he did. At the time, I had inherited a small trust from my late parents, old Charleston money that Noah insisted we protect from business liabilities. Ironically, that clause would now protect me instead. He thought he was clever, siphoning money from our joint accounts, hiding expenses under vague business labels. But what he didn't know was that I'd noticed every single transfer. I had worked in financial auditing before Sophie was born. Numbers tell stories when people lie, and Noah's story was practically screaming at me from our bank statements. At first, I didn't want to believe it. I told myself it was stress, or maybe early onset midlife madness. But then came the text messages. I still remember the first one I saw. It was the night I woke at 2:17 a.m. to find him smiling at his phone. When he went to the bathroom, I looked. I wish I hadn't. After Sophie's graduation, we'll be free, the message read. No more pretending. I'll tell her that night. The same night he just humiliated me in front of our family. I gripped the steering wheel, remembering how my hands had trembled back then. Not from heartbreak, but from betrayal so sharp it numbed me. So I began preparing. Quietly. Strategically. I hired a discreet investigator. I tracked the accounts. I even located a small condo Noah had been visiting on Thursday nights, the one he'd told me belonged to a client. And while he played the doting husband for Sophie's graduation photos, I was filing paperwork with my attorney, Margaret Devereaux, one of the best family law attorneys in South Carolina. The prenup included a fidelity clause. If Noah ever engaged in an extramarital affair and financial deceit, he forfeited all joint assets except a small percentage of his business holdings. And because I'd documented every expense tied to his affair, from jewelry to luxury dinners, the proof was undeniable. I had spent years being the quiet backbone of our marriage. Now, I was the architect of its controlled demolition. When I finally arrived home, our house looked still and perfect, as if the night hadn't happened. I walked into the kitchen, took off my heels, and poured myself a glass of wine. For the first time in months, I felt calm. The phone on the counter vibrated. 8 missed calls from Noah. 2 from Sophie and 1 from my sister Claire. I ignored his messages and called Sophie back. Mom, are you okay? Her voice cracked slightly. Dad saying you blindsided him? I cut her off gently. Sweetheart, I'm fine. Don't listen to anything he says tonight. Just rest. We'll talk tomorrow. There was a pause. You knew, didn't you? Yes, she exhaled shakily. Then I'm glad you did something first. I smiled sadly. So am I. After hanging up, I opened my laptop and logged into my private savings account, the one Noah had never known about. Years ago, I'd started putting away small deposits under my maiden name. It was my insurance policy against something I never wanted to believe could happen. The irony? That hidden fund was what allowed me to build this escape. A car door slammed outside. Headlights swept across the living room wall. I didn't even have to look. I knew it was him. My phone buzzed again. Noah. He was calling from the driveway. I didn't answer. Let him stew. Let him wonder what else I knew. Because the truth was, I hadn't even shown him the real evidence yet. The envelope was just the first chapter, and the next one would hit him harder than he ever imagined. When Noah finally walked through that front door, demanding answers, he had no idea the real battle hadn't even started, and that I'd already won it. The sound of the front door slamming was enough to jolt the glass in my hand. I didn't flinch. I'd been expecting it. Noah? I said quietly, not looking up from the kitchen counter. He appeared in the doorway, face flushed, shirt collar pulled open, tie hanging loose, like a man who'd just sprinted through the ruins of his own life. His voice came out raw. What the hell was that tonight? I finally turned to him. That was the truth. Something you've been hiding for a long time. You humiliated me in front of everyone, he barked. Sophie, your sister, my colleagues. I cut him off. You humiliated yourself. I just stopped pretending for you. He stepped closer, his jaw tight. You're overreacting. There's no need for this drama. Whatever you think you know. Oh, please, Noah. I laughed bitterly. If you're going to lie, at least be creative. I know everything. The condo. The bank transfers. The woman you've been sneaking around with. Emily, right? Your assistant who somehow has matching receipts for dinners in the same cities as your conferences? He froze. The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. When he spoke again, his voice dropped, trembling with restrained anger. You've been spying on me. I was surviving, I said evenly. You started this. I just finished it properly. He slammed his hand against the counter. You had no right to. I had every right. My voice cracked for the first time that night. You stole from me, Noah. You lied to me. You built your little empire on my savings, my trust, and my name. Don't you dare stand there and call me dramatic for finally defending myself. He took a deep breath and ran a hand through his hair. So what now? You want a divorce? Fine, we'll deal with it quietly. No need to drag Sophie through this. A small, cold smile tugged at my lips. Oh, it won't be quiet. And as for Sophie, she's stronger than you think. He narrowed his eyes. You wouldn't? I stepped closer, meeting his gaze without blinking. I already have, his composure cracked. You sent those papers? Of course. Margaret will have them filed first thing tomorrow. He laughed, a hollow, humorless sound. You think you can take everything from me? I don't have to think it. The law says so, he scoffed, shaking his head. You won't win. I built this life. That house, that car, everything. With my inheritance, Noah, I interrupted sharply. With my parents' money. Do you really want me to remind you how this started? You needed an investor, remember? And I was foolish enough to love you more than I loved my own security. His face shifted then, not anger, but fear. Just a flicker. And that was enough. For the first time in years, I saw what lay behind his confidence. A man terrified of losing control. I loved you, Elena, he said finally, voice softening like a weapon sheathed. Everything I did for us. I tilted my head. Then why does us look so much like her? He had no answer. The clock on the wall ticked between us, steady, cruel. Finally, I reached for the envelope on the counter, the real one this time, thicker, heavier. I placed it in front of him. What's this? Evidence, I said simply. Every account, every transaction, every photo. I kept copies in multiple places. So even if something happens to this one, the truth survives. He stared at it but didn't touch it. You've thought of everything, haven't you? I had to, I replied quietly, because you taught me never to rely on anyone but myself. For a moment, he looked like he wanted to say something else. An apology, maybe. But then his phone buzzed on the counter. The name Emily flashed across the screen. We both saw it. He snatched the phone quickly, turning it face down, but the damage was done. I think that answers everything, I whispered. He didn't respond. He just walked past me, grabbed his keys, and left. The door slammed again, echoing down the hallway. I stood there for a long time, listening to the silence he left behind, but instead of crying, I smiled faintly. Because while he thought this was over, it wasn't even close. The next phase of my plan had already begun, and this time it wasn't about revenge, it was about freedom. The following morning, when the news broke about Noah's company investigation, I realized my plan had taken on a life of its own, one I might not be able to control. The next morning, I woke to the sound of my phone vibrating relentlessly on the nightstand. The room was still half dark, dawn creeping through the curtains in thin silver lines. For a moment, I thought it was Noah calling again. But when I picked it up, I saw a flood of notifications, emails, text messages, news alerts. Then one headline caught my eye. Marin Holdings under financial investigation. CEO Noah Marin, named in preliminary report. For a second, I thought I was still dreaming. I blinked, reread it, then sat up straight. My plan was meant to expose Noah privately, through the divorce proceedings, not publicly. The goal wasn't to destroy his reputation, just to free myself cleanly. But this was something else entirely. I opened the article. It mentioned anonymous financial evidence submitted to the South Carolina Financial Crimes Division, citing proof of internal asset mismanagement and undeclared offshore accounts. My breath caught. That was my documentation. The spreadsheets, the transaction trails, even the condo receipts. Someone had leaked them, but who? Margaret, my attorney, wouldn't have done it without consulting me. And I hadn't shared those files with anyone except her. Unless... A cold realization hit. My sister, Claire. 2 nights ago, she had come by to check in when Noah was at a late meeting. I'd shown her some of the files, venting about the betrayal. She'd been furious, angrier than I'd ever seen her. He deserves to be exposed, she'd said, pacing the kitchen. People like him shouldn't get to walk away clean. At the time, I thought she was just being protective. But Claire worked for a law firm that had close ties with state investigators. She had the access and the motive. I swung my legs out of bed and called her. She answered on the second ring. Elena, I was about to call you, she said quickly. Are you seeing the news? I am. Did you do this, Claire? A pause. Then softly. Yes. I pressed a hand to my forehead. Why? I told you this needed to be private. You've just turned it into a public scandal. I couldn't stand watching you suffer in silence. she said, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and guilt. He's been cheating, stealing, lying for years, and you think he deserves a clean divorce? No, Elena. He deserves to be ruined. I exhaled slowly, trying to steady my voice. Claire, I get it. But this changes everything. The media's going to hound us. Sophie, she's an adult, Claire interrupted. She'll understand. Besides, you're finally free. Free! The word echoed bitterly. Was I? Or had I just traded one kind of chaos for another? By noon, the house was surrounded by noise. Reporters parked at the end of the street, cameras clicking as I pulled the curtains shut. My phone buzzed nonstop with calls from unknown numbers. Then, another message came through. This one from Noah. I know what you did. You've gone too far. I'm not going down alone. My stomach twisted. Not long after, Margaret called. Her voice was sharp, brisk. Elna, I just got word from an inside contact. Noah's lawyers are claiming you leaked confidential financial data to authorities. He's threatening to sue for defamation. What? That's insane. I believe you, she said quickly. But you need to be careful. If he can paint you as the vindictive ex-wife who destroyed his business, it could backfire, legally and publicly. I sank onto the couch, rubbing my temples. So what do I do? Stay quiet for now. Don't post. Don't respond. Let the investigation unfold. But I couldn't stay still. Every instinct in me screamed that this was spiraling beyond control because Noah wasn't just angry, he was cornered. And a man like him, when cornered, doesn't just fight back. He destroys. That night, as rain began to fall against the windows, I sat in the dim light of the living room, scrolling through the endless stream of articles and comments. Then, at the bottom of one news post, a photo caught my eye, a grainy surveillance still of Noah leaving the condo I'd mentioned in my evidence. Only, he wasn't alone. The woman beside him wasn't Emily. It was someone I recognized, someone I never thought I'd see with him. When I zoomed in on that blurry image and realized who it was, the truth hit me like a storm. This betrayal went far deeper than I ever imagined. The rain outside had turned into a full storm by the time I could bring myself to really look at the image again. The photo was grainy, almost too pixelated to make out details, but the outline of the woman beside Noah was unmistakable. Dark hair pulled back. Distinct posture. The tilt of her chin. It was Claire. My sister. I stared at the screen, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. For a moment, I couldn't process it. My brain refused to connect the two people in that photograph. Claire and Noah, my husband and my sister. The air left my lungs in a slow, disbelieving exhale. No. I opened another article, zooming in on a second image, taken a few weeks before, according to the timestamp. Different outfit. Same two figures. This time, their hands were touching. A sick wave of nausea rolled through me. I stumbled to the bathroom sink and gripped the edge until my knuckles whitened. How long? How long had this been happening? I replayed every memory. Claire's constant presence during our family dinners, her subtle sympathy every time Noah and I argued, her insistence that I deserved better. I'd thought she was protecting me. Now I saw it for what it really was. Guilt wearing the mask of concern. The betrayal felt colder than anything Noah had ever done. Because I could have forgiven infidelity from a stranger, but this was blood. When I finally managed to call her, she didn't answer. Instead, a few minutes later, she texted me, Elena, please don't believe what you're seeing. It's not what it looks like. I almost laughed out loud. The oldest line in the book, I typed back, fingers shaking. Then tell me what it is. No response. Another message came instead, this time from Noah. You finally figured it out, didn't you? Claire was never supposed to be part of your plan. But she was part of mine. I froze. Part of his plan? He called next. Against my better judgment, I answered. His voice was calm, too calm. You always thought you were 10 steps ahead, Elena. Turns out you were just dancing to my rhythm. My throat tightened. You're sick. No, he said evenly. Just strategic. You thought I didn't notice you tracking my accounts? Please, you were sloppy. I let you find what I wanted you to find. Enough to push you into making a move. And now with this investigation, you've done exactly what I needed. What are you talking about? He chuckled. The offshore accounts weren't mine, sweetheart. They're in your name. My heart stopped. No. Check for yourself, he said, satisfaction dripping from every word. The transfers, the condo payments, the shell companies, all under Elena Harper Investments. You just handed the authorities your own rope. The call ended. I stood there frozen, my phone pressed to my ear, rain pounding the windows like applause for the cruelty of it all. I rushed to my laptop, opening my financial dashboard. Sure enough, there it was. A foreign account I had never created, now conveniently tied to my personal information. Dozens of deposits. Each one dated during the same months I'd been gathering evidence. Noah hadn't just been cheating, he'd been setting me up. And Claire, she'd been his inside help, the perfect accomplice. My stomach churned as I realized the truth. Every move I made to expose him had been anticipated, even manipulated. He wanted me to push him into the public eye, because once the storm hit, he could flip the script. Make me the villain. But he underestimated one thing. I wasn't done fighting. If he wanted a war, I'd give him one. I backed up every file, every message, and every shred of proof I still had. Then I sent one email. Not to Margaret, not to Claire, not even to the investigators. It was to someone else entirely. Someone who knew Noah better than anyone. His business partner, Daniel Reeves. And Daniel hated Noah almost as much as I did. When Daniel replied just 2 hours later with the words, "I've been waiting for this," I knew the final act had just begun. And Noah had no idea what was coming for him. Daniel Reeves called me before sunrise. His voice was low, steady, the kind of calm that only comes from someone who's seen too much. "Elena," he said, "I've known for months something was off with Noah. He's been funneling funds through dummy corporations. I confronted him once. He denied it, then cut me out of several projects. Now I see why. I think he used me," I whispered. "The accounts, they're in my name." "I'm being framed," Daniel exhaled sharply. "Then we bring him down properly. I've got access to the original ledgers, the real ones. He can't fake what's on those." For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of control return. Together, we mapped out the plan over encrypted calls and late-night emails. Noah had always believed in playing God, manipulating people like pieces on a board. But now the board was mine. 3 days later, I walked into Marin Holdings headquarters, the very building I'd helped fund years ago. I wore a black suit, hair tied back, calm but unshakable. Cameras were still camped outside, feeding off the chaos of the ongoing investigation. Noah was waiting in his office, his usual arrogance replaced by something colder. "Bold move showing up here," he said, leaning back in his chair. "Trying to clean up your mess?" I smiled faintly. "Actually, I came to deliver something." I placed a small flash drive on his desk. "Everything you've hidden. Every ledger, every offshore transaction. The original ones. Courtesy of Daniel Reeves," he stiffened. "Daniel? Turns out loyalty isn't something you can buy," I said softly. "You should have learned that." For a brief second, panic flickered across his face before he masked it with a smirk. "You think this will save you? Those accounts are still under your name." "The feds already know," I interrupted. "I met with them this morning. Showed them the metadata proving you used my digital signature without authorization. They have your IP logs, Noah." His expression hardened. "You lying?" "I don't need to lie anymore." He rose from his chair, voice low and dangerous. "You have no idea what you've done." I looked him in the eye. "No, Noah, you have no idea what I've survived." The office door opened suddenly. 2 federal investigators entered, followed by Daniel. Noah's mask cracked completely then. Rage, disbelief. "Desperation all at once, Mr. Marin," one of the agents said. "You're under arrest for financial fraud, embezzlement, and evidence tampering." Noah looked at me as they read him his rights. "You think you've won, Elena?" I stepped closer. "I didn't want to win, Noah. I just wanted peace. You chose war." As they led him away, I felt the tightness in my chest finally release, not with triumph, but relief. When I left the building, the storm had passed. Sunlight was breaking through the clouds, painting the street in soft gold. Reporters shouted my name, but I didn't stop. For once, I didn't need to explain myself. A few weeks later, I met with Sophie at a small cafe by the harbor. She looked older somehow, wiser. She reached across the table and took my hand. "Mom," she said softly, "I'm proud of you." I smiled, tears threatening to spill. "You shouldn't have had to see any of this." "I needed to," she said. "It taught me something important, that strength doesn't always mean staying quiet." We watched the waves crash against the pier, the city humming gently in the distance. I'd sold the house. Closed every joint account. Started fresh under my maiden name again. Elena Harper, the person I'd buried under years of compromise. Daniel later sent me one final message. It's done. Marin's assets are frozen. You're clear. I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. Thank you. For everything. His response came quickly. You did this yourself. I just handed you the match. And maybe he was right. That night, as I walked along the waterfront, the lights of Charleston reflecting in the dark water, I thought about everything that had been lost and everything I had regained. Freedom isn't clean. It's messy, costly, and full of scars. But it's mine now, entirely mine. As the wind picked up carrying the smell of salt and rain, I whispered to no one in particular, maybe to the version of me that had once been too afraid to fight back. You're finally home. I turned and walked away, leaving behind the city that had held both my heartbreak and my rebirth. And somewhere behind me, buried beneath the noise of distant sirens and fading storms, Noah Marin's empire was burning.